Good morning.
Good morning.
And happy Easter.
Happy Easter.
If I'm not mistaken, I think it's the 22nd day of Easter. We're just barely halfway through the season. The high point, as one writer puts it, the prime 1/7 of time.
Amen.
1/7 out of the year, this is the highest point when we really celebrate the good things that God has done for us, the great things that God has done for us through the death, burial, resurrection, and ascension of His Son, Jesus Christ. 3,000 years ago, a young lad, shepherd lad named David, said, "The Lord is my shepherd." And for 3,000 years, God's people has held on to that word. 2,000 years ago, Jesus Christ brought it to a higher dimension when He said, "I am the good shepherd." The good shepherd. Good shepherd is not just a convent in Bog Hill that makes really good strawberry jam. Good shepherd is something far beyond that. Someone far beyond that. And every year, on this fourth Sunday in Easter, pretty much since the beginning of the church, it's always set aside in the middle of this Easter season, in the very center of the Easter season, because this is pretty much the center of the gospel. The proclamation of Jesus Christ, "I am the good shepherd." And as He says late in the middle of the gospel reading today, there is one flock and one shepherd. He said, "I am the good shepherd," not a good shepherd, not one of many shepherds. That's why we're patched together with Acts chapter 4, verse 12. That says, "There is one name given unto man whereby we must be saved." One name. That name is the Good Shepherd, the Messiah, Jesus Christ. He who said, "I am." The same name that God revealed Himself to Moses way back 1,000 years before this. And Jesus took the same phrase, "I am," and then took it to a higher dimension. The Good Shepherd. One flock, one shepherd. See, the thing of Jesus is to be our shepherd. That's His thing. His thing, "I am the Good Shepherd." Our thing is to be sheep. You know, that's who we are. That's what we are. We are sheep. His thing is to be the shepherd and to lead us. Our thing is to be the sheep, and sheep basically do one thing. Sheep follow. And that's really all you have to worry about. It's all you have to know. That's what sheep are made to do. Sheep are made to follow the shepherd. This is key in the teachings of Jesus. In Luke chapter 9, verse 23, we all know Jesus said, "If anyone wants to be my disciple, let him deny himself, take up his cross daily, and" what? "Follow me." In Luke chapter 5, when Jesus called the disciples, He told several different groups of men, "Come, follow me." Why? Because we're sheep. That's what sheep do. Sheep don't make supper. Sheep don't drive the car. Sheep do one thing. Sheep follow. Other people will do the cooking and the driving and the providing. That's the shepherd. We follow. In Matthew chapter 10, verse 38, Jesus says, "If anyone does not follow me, he's not worthy of me." You can't call yourself my disciple if I'm not your shepherd and if you're not following me. And the very last words of Jesus, the last recorded words that Jesus spoke to Peter, 2 times He says, "Follow me." There in John chapter 21. The last words of the one who was to be the under-shepherd for much of the church. Because see, even an under-shepherd, the name shepherd might be there, but an under-shepherd is still a sheep. Because once an under-shepherd stops following the good shepherd, he stops being a sheep, he stops being a shepherd too. Any under-shepherd has to understand they're sheep. and they follow the Good Shepherd. Otherwise, they're neither shepherd nor sheep. Jesus' thing is to be the shepherd. Our thing is to be the sheep. That's the message that the church brings forth every year, because it has to make sure its members, the sheep, the flock, understand who we are. In that role of sheephood, we have a lot of great things. We have a lot of authority. We have so much we can do, so much we can be, so many things that the shepherd has assigned us. But in all, it's only effective to the degree that we follow our shepherd. See, as long as we follow him, there's no anxiety. No need to worry. Oh, is this going to happen? Is that going to happen? Is this going to work out? Is that going to work out? Am I going to get better? Is my kids going to be okay? Am I going to be able to pay this bill? You can get rid of all that anxiety if you just understand this simple principle. The Lord is your shepherd. And he leads you in some very good places, as we'll see as we go through this. We can follow. Sometimes people would say, well, I'm not sure I know how to follow. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to follow. See, a shepherd knows how to make sure the sheep follow. That's his job. He's the good shepherd. He's not an inept shepherd. He's not a failed shepherd. He is the good shepherd. That means he knows his job. He knows how to lead us. And one of the first things he has to teach us is to know his voice. Because in order to follow him, you have to hear him. And in order to hear him, you must know his voice. But he says here in John chapter 10, both in verse 16, which we read, in verse 27, which is part of next year's Shepherding Sunday verse, he says, my sheep know my voice. My sheep know my voice. Now, how can we really know the voice of the Lord? You know how you know somebody's voice? When you spend time listening to it. Amen. Hard to recognize somebody's voice if you never listened to them. If you've never heard them before, you can't tag that voice with that face. But if you listen to somebody, constantly listen to somebody who is always speaking and leading, which is what shepherds do, before long you will recognize his voice. That's what Jesus promised. My sheep will know my voice. You ever have somebody call you up whom you don't really know very well? And they go, hi, guess who this is? I'm like, there's no way you can know. You hardly ever spoken to them. It's just setting you up for epic failure. You know, and then they're so disappointed. Not my fault. I had somebody call me before. I had talked to them a bit, sometime before when I was in Hong Kong occasionally. Every couple of months we'd get together and see them. But after we were here, maybe 5 years, they called up out of the blue. Hi, Father, guess who this is? I really wish I knew the answer to that, because I know how you're going to take it when I tell you, Ewan Ko. How do you know? That's irritating. But once you've spent some time with somebody, talk with them, you really can know their voice. A couple of nights ago, I was at Mega Mall, and I was there to pick up my daughter and her friends because they had gone out for her birthday, celebrate. And my wife told me, okay, there's 2 numbers here for your daughter. I don't know which one is hers because she just got a new phone. Now, she has to have 2 phones for some reason. One for social media, one for actual talking. It's a different world, folks. You guys our age, it's just a different world. Get used to it. It's there. But and my wife said, there's 2 different numbers. I don't know which one is which, but when you get there, start calling the numbers and you'll find out where they are. You can meet them. Okay, so I got the Mega, and I said, okay, I got 2 numbers here. I don't know which one. Which one's Josephine? Which one's one of her friends? So I just called. And I called the number, ding, 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 ding. It rang a couple times, then it answered. As soon as I heard the voice on the phone, I knew who it was. Because I know my daughter's voice very well, and I knew it wasn't her. And I knew the person whose voice it was, because I'd just spent a year teaching them English. And even though in the class I'm supposed to do all the talking, sometimes that class does a lot of talking themselves. And so I'd heard that person speak a lot in English class. So immediately I knew, oh, hi. And she knew my voice because she'd heard me talking a lot in class. Hi, Father. Hello, hello. We didn't have caller ID. The number showed up on the phone with no name beside it because, the phone didn't know. But we could tell because we had listened to each other and we knew the voice. I knew whose voice it wasn't, and I knew whose voice it was. And there's something important in that. If Jesus says, my sheep know my voice, He's letting us know we need to listen regularly. We need to listen regularly. We need to listen when people are there reading regularly. We need to listen when people are here speaking regularly. We need to listen when we're in prayer. We know, right, that prayer is not just us running off a wish list. Prayer is listening to the shepherd. How else will you know where to go? How else will you know how to be led if you don't first listen? And so Jesus says, another nice thing He says in verse 14 of the gospel reading, I know my own. He knows us. Because He knows us, He knows where to lead us. He knows exactly who we are. He knows exactly what we need. He knows our requirements. He knows exactly how to lead us and knows where to lead us. In the second reading from 1 John chapter 3, verse 20, it said there, God is greater than our heart and knows all things. Now, if we just put the scriptures together we were just talking about, where David said, the Lord is my shepherd, and Jesus says, I am the good shepherd, we can tie that together and say, God is greater than our heart. We can say, the good shepherd is greater than our heart and knows all things. See, if we believe that, if we believe He's greater than our heart and knows what we need more than we do, and if we follow Him, listen to His voice, and follow Him, we're going to be all right. Amen. We can stop the worrying. We can stop the anxiety. I don't understand where I am right now. Yeah, you're not the shepherd, but I promise you He knows. Yes. And He understands because He brought you there. And He brought you there with a purpose and with a reason. Because He's the good shepherd. See, our problem is we're not totally convinced that God is greater than our hearts and knows all things. We've kind of got a sneaking suspicion in our minds. God, are you sure? You said a lot of stuff in this book. I'm not sure I believe it all. I heard from somebody somewhere else a different thing. I've heard another theory, another theology, another philosophy from somewhere. My professor in university has another theory. You really know all things? Says here. He knows all things. So when He leads us in places that we don't understand, it's not that He's dumb and He messed up. It's just He knows all things. We don't. That's why we need a shepherd. That's why sheep always have a shepherd. You leave a sheep without a shepherd, recipe for disaster. Won't last long. Sheep need a shepherd. The shepherd. But see, we think we know better. Lord, all this green grass, beautiful, lovely, boring. I'd kill for a taco. What I wouldn't love to have a nice big plate of bagnette. Forget the grass. It's probably GMO anyway. It's probably full of all sorts of genetic whatevers. I'm tired of being a vegetarian, Lord. Can I go beyond the green pastures and the grass? We get that way sometimes. I know I do. Are you really sure your plan's the best one, Lord? No. It really is. It really is, because He's the shepherd and He knows what His sheep need. He knows where they need to go. Knows what He needs to feed them. Lord, still waters. Boring. I want to go shooting the rapids. Much more fun. And really? Do a big nalang deer? Can I at least get orange juice? I promise I won't drink alcohol, just orange juice, something besides water. This is the way we are. Remember the Israelites in Egypt? Lord, we're tired of this manna. Give us meat. We're the same way. We get tired of when the Lord leads. He's so good, He leads us to exactly what we need. and then we go, I think I need something more. That's where we get into trouble. As long as we follow, we're going to be in great shape. It's when we start questioning God and saying, yeah, I know you say you know all things, but come on, God, I'm pretty smart too, right? I mean, you gave me a brain, I can think, I can reason for myself, I can go beyond what's written here and find out some deeper revelations. That's where we get in trouble. Because sheep aren't supposed to do that. Sheep let the shepherd do the leading. The sheep do the following. But you look at all the things He promises, to which we would be living in if we simply follow. We go back to what David promised us, the promise of David in Psalm 23. He said, because the Lord is my shepherd. Now, if the Lord's not your shepherd, none of these things apply. Sometimes we read Psalm 23, claim that, got that, get this, and we skip the first verse. We're not acting like sheep, and we're not acting like the Lord is our shepherd. And so, all bets are off when it's like that. But if we walk in this, the Lord is my shepherd, you can even write a word in the front of that. Because the Lord is my shepherd, first of all, I shall not want. Now, there's an unfortunate thing in the English language. Want has two different meanings. The meaning that is written here means lack. Have something that you need that you don't have. There's another meaning for want, which means, gusto ko, yeah. You really want that one. Desire that. That's not really what he means here. Just because the Lord is your shepherd don't mean all your desires are going to come to you. Sometimes I wish, but we better be glad that it doesn't work that way. Because sometimes the things we really desire, not really the best thing for us. But see, the Lord knows. Our shepherd knows because He knows all things. And because He knows all things, He knows what we need, what we require. And as a good shepherd, He leads us into that. And when we follow Him, we shall not lack in any good thing. That's His promise. Then He says He restores us. Life is hard sometimes. I'd like to tell you that everything is perfect and rosy and everything works out wonderfully, but sometimes life is hard. And sometimes we get a little bogged down. Sometimes we get a little weary. Sometimes we get a little discouraged. Because that's part of being a sheep. But He promises, if the Lord is our shepherd and we follow Him, when we do get into those places, He restores my soul. That's the promise of God for His sheep. For those who acknowledge Him as their shepherd, He restores. Even if we find ourselves in the valley of the shadow of death, we won't fear if we know we're following Him. Because we can say, Lord, You're my shepherd, I'm following You, You led me here. Even if it seems like we're sick to the point of death, even if the doctor says, you're sick to the point of death, if we are confident that we have heard the voice of God, because He will speak, if we're confident that we have followed that voice, we can know God has a purpose. His purpose might be to raise us up as a witness in healing. His purpose might be to raise us up as a witness of patience in suffering, like the Lord also mentions in the Scripture. But whatever, because the Lord led us there, we can be strong. We can be confident. We can be assured. And we can also be confident in the promise that He won't lead you into something that you can't handle. He will not allow you to be tempted beyond what you can bear. Lord, I can't bear this illness anymore. If that's true, He'll bring a resolution. He'll bring a healing. Might be you can do more than you thought you could. It might be the Lord is touching many lives through your witness in that. But in all of it, remember, when you're in the valley of the shadow of death, He's with you. Now that doesn't include being reckless. If you just say, I want to jump off this building to see if I can land okay, that's reckless. That's not the Lord being your shepherd, and you might be passing through the valley of the shadow of death, and you'll probably stay there. If you're just reckless and foolish. See, that's not included here. But if He's really your shepherd and He's led you to that valley, you can be assured you'll pass through. One way or another, you will pass through with the shepherd still right there ahead of you. Then He says, You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Here's the bad news. I don't care who you are, how cool you are, how wonderful you are, how majestic you are, splendid you are, perfect you are, sooner or later, you're going to make enemies. A lot of times, not even your fault. Maybe they're just jealous of you. I always say that. Why don't they like me? They must be jealous of me. No. Couldn't ever be my fault, right? No way. So, you're going to end up in the presence of people you don't really like. And they don't really like you either. But again, the Lord put you there. You have set a table for me in the presence of my enemies. If the Lord is leading you, know that He led you to the presence of those enemies. One of the things that I've noticed, especially today, in this generation, if we're in a situation, in a job, or in a class, at school, or whatever, and we feel like there's enemies there. I don't like that person. They don't respect me. They don't like me. I'll just leave. I'll go somewhere else. I'll get another job. I'll go to another school. I'll find a new class. Whatever. But remember, it's the Lord that led you. That's why one of the important gifts that God gives us is forbearance. Over and over again in the New Testament, forbear with one another. Because I promise you, sooner or later, some of the guys in the church are really going to hack you off. It's just going to happen. But remember, the Lord is your shepherd. He led you there. And when we leave, when we run, I was sharing with somebody a couple of days ago in my place of work in the school where I work part-time. And she was saying, I'm leaving the school next year because there's just some people here that I don't really like. And I told that person, okay, I know what you mean. I know those people you're talking about. Yeah, same with me. But at the other school where you're going to find whatever it is, there'll be people like that there too. You won't get away from them. You might get away from these people, but that kind of people are always going to be wherever you go. And wouldn't it be ironic if you left here and went over there, and then this year or next year, the person you're having a problem with also resigns? Because I had heard that they were going to. It's like, you can't get away from some types of people. But running away from them is not the answer. Remember, the Lord led you to be with those people. Why would He do that? Maybe He wants you to put them in contact with them so you can help them not to be enemies anymore. How silly is it that if you run away from God's enemies all the time, who's going to evangelize them? Who's going to help them to be not enemies? Who's going to help them to be the friends of God if you're running away from all God's enemies? It just doesn't make sense. But see, the Lord, our shepherd, leads us to people sometimes, puts us in the presence of people sometimes, for us to help them to raise up. One sheep improving the lot of another sheep by introducing them to the shepherd. Then he goes on and he says, goodness and loving kindness will follow me all the days of my life. Another place where sheep get mixed up, we work really hard trying to find goodness and loving kindness. I'm trying so hard to be good. I'm trying so hard to love better. I'm trying so hard to be kind. We're chasing them. Baliktad, they should be chasing us. As we follow the shepherd, we will flow in loving kindness and goodness. And it will follow us. We don't need to follow it. It will follow us as long as we're following the Good Shepherd. That's where sometimes Christians get really irritating, because we try to throw our goodness and loving kindness and things that we're following, and we try to dump them on other people. And you've got to follow this rule. You've got to follow my way of doing things. You've got to follow all of my ethics and all of my everything else, and you've got to do this. That's not effective. Most people won't be influenced by that. But if we follow the Lord and walk in His image and be transformed into His image, that loving kindness and that goodness will follow us. It'll become a part of our nature. And then others will follow that. That's a much better method of evangelism than just trying to ramrod things down people's throat. You follow your shepherd, and then the loving kindness and mercy will follow you. And then others will follow that also. One other thing in closing that the Lord promises that we need to stop worrying about. What's the future of the church? This religion's getting stronger. That religion's getting stronger. You look at the statistics. More and more people are not going to church anymore. What's going to happen? What's going to happen in the future? Jesus said, I've got other sheep you don't even know about. And He said, I will bring them. Remember what it says in Acts several times? The Lord adds to the church daily those who are being saved. The Lord brings them. We do our part as we follow the shepherd. He'll give us instructions. We have roles to do. But in the end, He's the one that brings. In the end, He said, I will bring them. And how many flocks will we have? We'll have 5 flocks. We'll have a Buddhist flock and a Muslim flock and a Hindu flock and whatever else flock. Oh yes, and there'll be a Christian flock too. How many flocks will there be? You remember this gospel, right? We just read that. 1 flock. How many shepherds? 1 shepherd. And who is that good shepherd? I am the good shepherd. We need to stop worrying because He's already promised us this. Yes, we have to do our role, but you know what? It's not up to us. God never put all the responsibility and built His whole kingdom on 1 sheep. He's got a shepherd. It's up to the shepherd, and the shepherd is very capable. As a shepherd, he's capable